Apex predators, Olympic runners, sketchy ex-husbands, and planning his wedding all vie for Sheriff John Cabrelli's attention in the fourth book of the Northern Lake series, Musky Run, by Jeff Nania, who we are lucky enough to visit with today. Welcome to Blackbird Writers Presents Author Interviews, and welcome to you, Jeff.
Thank you, Sharon. I'm real pleased to be here. We're very excited about the release of this fourth book, and we hope that people like it.
It is an exciting read. I tell you, I'm just on the edge of my seat with again. I don't want to give too much away, but there's a lot of chasing that's going on, and yeah, a lot of different perspectives on what's happening in that chase, and it is exciting. So I do just want to jump right in, first of all, to the publishing company Feet Wet Writing, and kind of, hi Victoria, and where that name comes from.
Well, first of all, Victoria, I have no technical skills. I can fix a tractor, but I can't even imagine fixing a computer.
I think fixing a tractor is important and impressive as well.
Living out here, fixing a tractor is absolutely essential. Feet Wet Writing, my wife and I have been involved in environmental education and conservation for many years. Mm-hmm. I was the head of the wetland restoration field team, and I did wetland restorations for 14 other conservation groups and 9 government agencies. And actually, the actual process of restoring the wetlands, taking these fields that had been converted and putting them back on the landscape. Mm-hmm. And basically, both of us here have spent a lot of time with wet feet. And when you jump into a new venture, sometimes you just got to get your feet wet. And so that's pretty much where it came from. And the boots, my boots have traveled a long ways and been a lot of places.
Yeah, I think you wrote a blog post about that once, all the places your boots have been. I loved that image.
It was my favorite. I loved writing that. I thought about that and I was laughing the whole time. Particularly the part, now you can imagine this. So I'm chasing this bad guy when I was in law enforcement, and he's really a bad guy. And he runs up to the second flight of stairs in a 2-flat, this old 2-flat out of an alley, goes through the door, slams the door and locks it. I run up and go to kick the door right at the doorknob to open it. I missed, and my foot went right through the door. So now I am, honest to God, stuck with my whole leg between the door and him.
Which would not be funny, but I know that you're clearly safe. So it's a funny image.
At that point, it was not funny.
No, I bet not. Oh my goodness. Yeah, those boots have seen a lot. All right, so this book opens with John sort of just talking about change and all the change that is happening. And I was just wondering how your life is changing and how that is affecting your writing, if at all.
Oh, it certainly does. In this case, life is it's never the same. It's always changing. And some of us recognize changes and embrace them, and some of us don't. But in this book, change is one of the themes of the book, where we find things happening that may be beyond our control. As a matter of fact, in one part of the book, there's a problem between the relationship between humans and wildlife. Mm-hmm. Well, if you live in an area like northern Wisconsin, there's plenty of wildlife. Yeah. And humans have certainly built homes to live there. And so we have to figure out how this all works together. I mean, really, nationally, we are facing change.
Mhm.
We're facing change that is land-based. Will we build a parking lot, or will we have a farm field? How will we use the land? As this land disappears, it becomes more and more valuable to all of us who have to, live off the land.
Mhm.
And, there are some people who actually believe that their Big Mac came from the drive-up window. And change is this about. And John Cabrelli, he's been through a lot of change. And he started his life in South Madison and found his way to northern Wisconsin. And I enjoy how he looks at change. I tell people this and they look at me strange, and that's okay. He's like a friend of mine.
Yeah. Oh,
We've
yeah.
all been through change. And you want to ask yourself sometimes, well, John, what do you think about this? Well, you can't ask him. He doesn't know.
Well, sometimes you can. Sometimes your characters are just like, here, because it's, your subconscious just kind of working away back there. And sometimes they'll give you an answer.
Yeah, that's right. But I really believe so. Change is one of the themes of the book. And there's changes in John Cabrelli's life. There's changes all around. There's changes in who's going to run police departments. There are all sorts of things like that. And there's a change about how we're going to interact with wildlife and how that's going to work out for us or not.
Yeah. Yeah. I have moved up into the mountains in Arizona since I last interviewed you. And we are kind of used to mule deer and white-tailed deer just kind of like walking around in the city. But we had a javelina, which is a wild boar, in our front yard yesterday. And here we are all of these animals are protected, and it is amazing to see that just right there out your front window. Yeah.
And we love it. We love it. We love to see them. Javelina, these native little pigs, are an incredible animal, and we love to see them. We don't want to break that bond we have with wildlife.
Exactly.
But we have to figure out somehow for all of us to do well. Because if you're somebody that has a grizzly bear in your front yard, or a black bear, or in your case, a cougar, all of a sudden it's a little bit different.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is where there's apex predators play important roles in this book. So one of the things that you kind of start out with, so we have our conflict with man versus nature, which is one of those primal conflicts, but we also have sort of a human versus human conflict right there at the beginning with your new sheriff, and you really do talk about discrimination in law enforcement. And I kind of wanted to know why you chose to tackle that right there at the beginning of this book.
Law enforcement is changing. It is something that is very, very important to me. I have worked with or known law enforcement officers, some phenomenal law enforcement officers. Some were men and some were women. But in certain places, it still is difficult for women to find their way into law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And in this case, this is from a real interview that was done with a friend of mine. And she said clearly, do not choose me because of my gender. Do not choose me because I'm a local favorite. Choose me because I am the right choice.
Right choice.
And that is where we have to go. My
exactly.
daughter went into law enforcement, and she's now she's not anymore, but she's a forensic social worker. And
Wow.
um, it was a welcoming environment with the department that she went to. And so you start to see this, and it's great. I mean, one of the finest law enforcement officers I know, honest to God, is a woman. And it has nothing to do with her being a woman. It has everything to do with her being an extraordinary law enforcement officer. We have to recognize that. We have to start making certain that our police departments and sheriff's departments reflect our communities.
Mhm.
We have to, and sometimes I don't think people really notice that. They just go on. But
Right.
that's the direction that I hope they're going to head in Musky Falls, where a woman is now the new chief of police.
Good for her. Um, yeah, absolutely. That is just, the 50-50, that's our population, just about. So, yes, we should be reflecting that in pretty much everything. So, thank you for that. Um, all right, so, and this is just curiosity I have, because I feel like it works differently in Arizona and California, where I spend most of my time. But the sheriff and police chief work really closely together. And I just kind of wanted to know the differences in jurisdiction and just how that works, because I know when I lived in the valley, we had a county island in the middle of the city of Tempe. And if something was happening in the island and you called the Tempe police force, they'd tell you to call the sheriff, because the sheriff was the county, and and yeah, it was odd.
Well, the bigger the department, the more chances there are for that. An area that I patrolled, a significant portion of it was a border with the city of Madison, but across that line, it was townships, and they were covered within the county and the county sheriff. So in smaller jurisdictions where budgets are limited, where the workload is significant, particularly in areas that have all sorts of weather, they find that, police departments and sheriff's departments work well together. I have personally seen that. I sometimes, the responsibilities of the sheriff's department and the police department vary. For example, the sheriff's department's responsible for the jail and
Okay.
housing inmates and the court services process and all those things, where a police department might be responsible primarily for patrol and investigation.
Okay.
And it is, and I can name any number of communities that have said, we're better off if we're stronger, we're more effective. One, actually, I talked to some guys, a sheriff and a chief of police recently, and they were talking about active shooter training, how they were doing it together. They were putting together teams to work together to handle the call out together. That gives them more strength, gives them more options. So I'm glad to see that.
Yeah.
Some
Synergistic, just making both departments stronger.
and that's what I've seen, and I hope that continues.
It's very cool. All right, so getting a little more back into the plot of the book, but also just what it's like to be in a small town that suddenly gets an influx of 25,000 tourists. What I mean, I've been in a big city where a whole bunch of tourists come in, and it's like, yeah, the traffic's a little worse, but that's about it. What's it like when you're in a really small town and the just size of the town doubles or triples?
Some of the towns that I've visited during those times and information that I've gotten, and I've actually worked at festivals and things like that in small towns. Small towns have tourism as a business.
Mhm.
It keeps things afloat. it in some small towns they say, boy, we love it when we hate it when the tourists come. But the reality is they love the tourists.
You need them. Yeah.
One community that I work with a lot, they have it down to a science. This is one of the things that they do. They expect 25,000 people or 35,000 people. And they do it, and they do it so well. And that's what amazes me. Can you imagine crowd control for 25,000 people? This is a product of the Chamber of Commerce. This is a product of law enforcement, sheriff's department, and police department. This is a part of they hire private security. But the idea is to keep everything going and going well and smoothly. It's amazing how they do that. And I worked at a festival. I was working that evening and got a call to go to a town. And they had an annual festival, and they'd increased the number of people who had shown up was significantly increased. Mm-hmm. And they were bringing in regular law enforcement officers to help control things. And, that community took them a little time to catch up with things, but they were soon caught up and everything was going on just fine. Matter of fact, they brought a hay wagon pulled by a tractor with Norwegian cloggers on it going right down the street and through the crowd.
That's awesome. Would love that. So you do have a character who is an hometown, small town girl who became an Olympic medalist. Is the character of Anna based on anybody or inspired by anybody?
Inspired by several people.
Okay, so just kind of combining.
I love the image and Anna McDonald. I like the idea of her success because it's earned. Mm-hmm. All of these people, I'm so lucky. I have all these people that help me make sure things are correct. On this book, I have an athletic team that provide a comment to me. And I mean, they're a 14-time Ironman, a 14-time.
Makes me tired just thinking about it.
I know, a coach and an Ironman, a world champion lumberjack, and a wilderness racer helped me develop Anna, and they helped me develop a race that goes on in the story.
Yeah,
and
it's all very exciting.
A lot of the interesting things that they said, the woman who was the 14-time Ironman, she had a very interesting perspective on this. And so I worked with all of them, and they were helpful. And I hope they like the book, because if they don't, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, I think they will. It's very exciting. So as I mentioned at the beginning, the apex predators are an important part of the plot, and living with humans and all of that. So I'm just wondering, have you ever had any experience with like an introduction of a new apex predator or anything like that in your area, and how that just helped to shape the plot of the story?
Yes. And, we have, there are a lot of things that are changing on the landscape. In Wisconsin, where this takes place, mm-hmm. we have 3 real apex predators. The most common is the black bear. Black bears in northern Wisconsin darn near outnumber the citizens.
It's a lot of bears.
That is a lot of bears. And then we have the gray wolf. Right now in California courts, they're deciding the future of the gray wolf in Wisconsin. And the federal court in California is looking at this through the Endangered Species Act. Mm-hmm. We have a controversy regarding gray wolves and predation on livestock and predation on family pets. and things like that. And we're trying to straighten that out, but so far have not been very successful in doing so. And the gray wolf numbers, I don't think anybody really knows exactly how many there are. But, you know, can you imagine the idea? So as smart as these gray wolves are, and they're really smart,
Yeah.
they would never conceive of an idea that their future is being decided in a courtroom.
Far, far away.
Far, far away, or any place inside. Their life is outside. They're going forward. They're doing just what wolves do, eat and breed. And they're putting together, you know, their packs. And so we also have a visitor, an occasional visitor. The most recent one was about 2 days ago, and those are cougars.
Mhm.
There is no reason. Cougars were native to in Wisconsin, and there is absolutely no reason that they wouldn't repopulate the northern part of the state. There's plenty to eat, plenty of cover, plenty of water, and they like, you know, they're reclusive. So, I love the idea of the apex predator. So who's the apex predator? Who's more dangerous? And I can tell you this: you're looking at them.
Yeah. Humans, 100%.
We are the most dangerous.
Mhm.
And I considering that whole idea and the dynamic between these two people. Let's just say bears move into your neighborhood and are trashing your trash cans, and now it's a human and a bear, and it's a controversy, and and we say we don't want these bears here. We like to see them. We don't really want them near. We don't want them making a mess. And it's that thing that we try so hard to grasp that.
Mhm.
People tend to attribute human characteristics to wildlife. In the first part of the book, one of the first pages, I talk about a thing called the least weasel.
I had to look it up. And they're so cute.
And they are absolutely cute as can be, and they seem to be cute, but they are mean as can be also. They are top predators in their world.
I read that their bite is stronger than a cougar. Yeah.
Any other animal.
Right. It's
So
crazy. But
it's
you look
just
like you should put a little vest on them and name them Trevor.
you put a little leash and vest and walk them around, and if you did that, they'd probably bite their way right up your leg.
Yeah, that was that was really the one thing about your books is that I also have to have like encyclopedia stuff open on my screen, so I can go back and forth between the book and then I need to look this up, or I need to, I need to see a map of this area or things like that. So, which is really very fun. I enjoyed it.
I'm glad.
All right. So what I know this is just coming out, but what is next for you and John Cabrelli?
He and I are going to have to talk it over. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm glad. I like this book, and I have a friend who's a prolific and an absolutely talented outdoor writer.
Mhm.
Never really likes anything he ever wrote. Everybody else in the world loves what he writes. I have to make sure that what I write, I like.
Yeah.
And my books to this point, I like. I like parts of some of them better than parts of other, but I like them.
Mhm.
So I don't even know what's going to happen. I'll be swimming across Spider Lake this summer, and who knows? That's where I got the idea for Musky Run,
Mhm.
swimming across the lake. And who knows?
Okay. All right. Well, I hope John talks you into telling another story. All right. And finally, where can our fans find you?
Feet
Like,
Wet Writing,
sorry,
feetwetwriting.com.
feetwetwriting.com.
Huh?
Perfect. All right. So thank you for taking the time to visit with
Oh,
me
thank
today.
you for having me. It was wonderful.
So it's always so much fun to talk with you. And for those listening, please watch out for Musky Run. Super exciting, beautifully told story. And thank you for being here for Blackbird Writers Presents Author Interviews.
Thank you very much. I'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.